First and foremost, I'm King McClure here, and this is Coaches Connect. Should be a good night. I'm very excited about this. You're hearing from one of the best in the business. So I want to say welcome to every single coach that's taking the time out of their schedule to be a part of this. Hopefully you get something from this and you'll learn and you'll grow. I think first and foremost, you see athletes in action. A lot of people don't know really what athletes in action is. So athletes in action, AIA Basketball is a Christian or a sports organization that seeks the good of the game, the growth of its people, and the glory of God. I've been fortunate to be a part of a lot of different athletes in action events. I went on the tour with Mike. We went to Poland, where I didn't have my bag the whole time. My bag got stuck in Chicago. That was horrible. So I touched down, and me and Mike are literally in the mall trying to get some stuff just so we can play. But I did have my shoes because I'm a hooper. That's all that really matters. So we had fun on the trip, learned a lot. I was also fortunate enough to go to the Captain's Academy, and that was a great time too. And I was able to host the Athletes in Action Wooden Keys to Life breakfast this past year in New Orleans. Athletes in Action has been a great thing for me, a great experience of my life, and it's really shaped me and helped me become the man I am today. This is my first Coaches Connect. So what is Coaches Connect? Coaches Connect has been a webinar series allowing seasoned coaches opportunities to build into younger coaches. I think it's a great thing. When Mike called me and asked me to do this, I was on board. I mean, anything that AIA does, I'm always here for it because I know it's going to help the game and help grow people as well. So thank y'all for being here. Thank you for taking the time out your day. I get y'all to the main reason why we're here. This man right here, Coach Drew, I was fortunate enough to play for him all 4 years. A great man and just one of the most important men in my life. And I don't just say that just to say that. It's one of those things where even to this day, when I call him for anything, he's still gonna pick up the phone. And I played there 4 years ago. And that means a lot from not just me, but from everybody who's ever played for him. This guy right here, he's such a family man. With his 3 kids, Brody, Peyton, Mackenzie, they're always at the gym. They're literally everywhere he goes. He's great with his wife and just a man who I seek to be like one day. So without further ado, Scott Drew, man.
Well, first, if I'm on a show with King McClure, it's a great show because I love being with King. King was every player we coach, it's a special honor and privilege and blessing to be able to do life and spend time with them. Some players just bless you a little more, and King's one of those that has been just a huge blessing on my family and myself. And I couldn't be more proud of him and his journey, his faith walk, how he's represented our university. And when he first got to Baylor, he went through an experience that very few people at that age ever go through. And that was with a heart condition. And I think we really became closer during that time. I think his relationship with Christ became closer during that time. Very similar. My brother had a heart issue when he was younger. And I tell you, when you go through those personal tough times like that, it really brings you closer to the Lord. And King, we're so blessed to be able to play and have a great college career and then be the youngest person hired by ESPN as far as an analyst goes. And he's going to be successful in whatever he does. And as long as he keeps wearing that keeping that Baylor jersey behind him, we're good with that. But King and I have something else in common, and that is Athletes in Action has really been a part of and touched our lives personally and our families' lives. And what I mean by that is I went on 2 Athletes in Action trips, and I grew up in the church, accepted Christ when I was a sophomore, but it really wasn't until my Athletes in Action tours where my relationship with Jesus Christ really became solidified. And it was at that point where I realized I couldn't work my way into heaven. And as you become older and you start to read the Bible more, you realize that all of us do sin. We sin every day. We're only saved through grace and through the faith in Jesus Christ and what he's done for us. And that if it wasn't for Mike Siegfried's on my 2 tours and Athletes in Action, spiritually, I don't know if I would have died at that age and I'd have gone to heaven and God would have said, why should I let you in? And I would have given him well, it's because if you're grading on the curve and I'm better than most of my friends, you got a really nice place up here in heaven. You got to let somebody in, right? So basically, I would have thought I worked my way into heaven. And we all know in Ephesians 2:8, it's by grace you've been saved through faith, not by works, so no man can boast. And John 3:16 is a verse that most of us memorize, but don't realize again that Jesus is the one that did all the work, and we don't need to work our way to heaven. The older I get, the more I realize that the only thing that I care about is making sure our staff is planting as many seeds with the young people we're blessed to coach. And one day my kids can be billionaires, but all I care about is seeing them in heaven. And that's the same thing with everyone God blesses us to encounter. So I know basketball wise, it's a tough profession. And when I say a tough profession, it's one of those you got to win. If you don't win, you get fired. So basketball is a great thing, and it's really enjoyable, and you love spending time in basketball. So what happens is the harder you work, the more successful you are, the better your team is. At the same time, what is your real calling? And what I mean by that is I've never heard a coach on their deathbed ever say, I wish I'd have spent more time at practice, watching game film, going to coaching clinics. I think every coach, when they're on their deathbed, if there's anything they regret, it's spending time with loved ones. And all of us work, all of us are going to spend time away from home. But if we don't prioritize our families, and if we don't prioritize our spiritual journey, then it's all for naught. And I know we won a national championship. We've won back-to-back conference championships. We're the winningest Power 5 program in the country in the last 3 years. And when I die, Jesus isn't going to say, well, you won a national championship, you're in heaven. He doesn't need another coach up there. At the end of the day, my relationship with him and me, hopefully doing everything I can to make sure all my family, friends, and loved ones and everyone I encounter has a chance to be up there with me is all that matters. And again, the older I get, the more passionate I am about that, because you take King McClure, for instance, and King's going to be really successful in life. He was a great player for us. I love him like a brother, but the only thing I really care about, am I going to see King in heaven? Am I going to spend an eternity with him? So one thing I can tell you is these are some things that I do. And I don't know, I always learn constantly. Just like we want our players to get better every day, I try to get better every day. Who can you learn from? You can learn from anybody. Anyone on this call can give us a great idea and something we can implement that would help all of us. And I know some things I've learned along the way that I incorporate. Normally, I just give you a normal day for me. I wake up in the morning and I'm blessed to take the kids to school. Do I like getting up early every morning? No. But that time driving them to school, often we'll call it Bible verse wars, and we'll go around and see who gets stumped first with quoting scripture. We'll pray together before they go to school that day, and then at work, you're at work, you get home hopefully in time to have dinner, and then I guess it's not the amount of time, it's the quality time you have. The older I've gotten, the more I try to put down the phone, give my kids quality time, help put them to bed, and then get back to work right at that point. Now, if they got homework, I'll do the quality time, and then I'll get to work and then take a break to put them to bed. And then I do normally my Bible reading at night. I try to read a verse or 2 verses every night. Maybe I'll do the New Testament. Maybe I'll do the Old Testament, then the New Testament. But if we were all God and we gave all our people one thing to read, and we get to heaven and God says, I gave you one thing to read and you read everything else, watched everything else, and never read what I actually gave you to help you, how foolish would we all be? And I think all of us realize the Bible is pretty big, pretty thick, and has a lot of wisdom. So it's not like we can get through it all. Maybe Mike's the only one that's got it all memorized. But we can't get through it all. And then it's a great opportunity to start again. And that's what I do. And then I always pray with my wife before we go to bed, or try to, and because there's always going to be exceptions. But I heard this stat: 1 out of 1,052 couples that pray together get divorced. So Christian, non-Christian, it seems like the stats about 50-50 in divorce rates. But 1 in 1,052, that number's pretty good. I think all of us would take that. So I think praying together, humbling ourselves with our spouse, and being spiritual leaders is important. At the same time, that's kind of what I do during the week. As far as family goes, my dad was assistant coach at LSU. They didn't have any NCAA rules back in the day. So he was gone, I think 152 or 156 nights his last year. He comes home one night, and I guess us kids were crying. We thought he was a burglar. And at that point, instead of staying on the track to be a Division I head coach at a real young age, he ended up going to a Division NAIA school, Bethel College, a small Christian school in Northwest Indiana, so he could grow up and spend time with us. And I never realized what a sacrifice that was till I got in the profession and realized if you're on the fast track to reaching all your goals and dreams and you take a back seat for your family, that's really something special. And thank goodness the NCAA's changed some rules which allow us to spend more quality time with our families. I'm always an advocate for making things better for all of us. And why I say that is most of us are married. We don't have to see the same kid 12 times just because someone else is seeing them. So I try to, COVID has taught us we can do these kind of things. And we all recruited when we didn't have any days out. So trying to cut down the amount of recruiting time so we spend more time with our teams and our family. I much rather that than spend most of our time with people we might not get, and then away from our players and away from our family. So that's during the year things, and I try to involve my family as much as I can, bringing them to games, tournaments, celebrating holidays with them. I had one coach that got here, and he's been to a lot of different schools, and he said, it's almost impossible to keep up with my friends since I've been here, because I realize how hard we work. But then when everyone else is with their families, like you feel like you need or should, and you want to be with your families, and really your friends get weeded out. And our players, same exact thing. We got to prioritize. They can't go to parties on Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night. They can't go out on Monday, Tuesday to whatever and be great players. So something has to give. And in this season of life, as long as I'm coaching, the thing that I've had give is it's just impossible for me to have a bunch of friends or do a bunch of things with the guys I grew up with, because I need to spend any free time I have, and I want to spend any free time I have with my immediate family. And I know that season of life will change at some point. I know everyone does it different. I'm just telling you how I do it. And one thing I've heard this from a lot of coaches: when they hire a coach, he can be great, but you got to meet the wife. And why that's so important is we do spend a lot of time at the office. And if you can tell that it's not going to work out, that spouse has to be special. And if she's not special, just like our players, if our players are a mess off the court, they're a mess on the court. And happy wife, happy life. And I know we have some women on the call, same thing with their spouse. I mean, our president is President Linda Livingstone, and the first gent is Brad Livingstone, and he is unbelievable. Like he allows her to be on every committee that she's on and lead Baylor University and other boards because of what he does and how much he does. So picking the right spouse is so critical. My only 2 cents when it comes to picking a spouse is, when I was young, I thought looks was the most important thing, and the wisdom of my parents was the only thing they care about was marry a Christian lady, marry a good Christian woman. And once I started praying for a good Christian wife, I found my wife within a month after that. So when God knew it was time for me to get married and I was wise enough to know what to ask for, he provided it. But you want to be equally yoked, and you want to be with someone that makes you better, someone that as you do life with, you iron sharpens iron. With our staff, a couple of things we do to stay Christ-centered. We have a culture of joy, Jesus, others, yourself. We begin every staff meeting in prayer. We begin every practice in prayer. We close every practice in prayer. We have a coach's Bible study. We have a player's Bible study. But everything, and being in a Christian school, we're able to do a lot more than other places are able to do. So that is a blessing. But you are what you feed yourself. You are who you surround yourself with. And if it's kind of like eating, if you don't eat a good meal tonight, you're going to be hungry. But if you eat a great meal tonight, tomorrow you're still going to be hungry. And spiritually, we got to feed ourselves each and every day if we want to win the game of life. And in our profession, there's so many highs and so many lows. But isn't it refreshing at night, as competitive as we are and as hard it is to remember at times? Do we love our kids if they miss the game-winning shot? Yes. Does God love us if we win or lose a game? Yes. So we need to keep the priorities in line. And that is, we're on this earth 75, 85 years if we're blessed. And what's important is eternity. And we have someone that in Jesus Christ that would die for us. And if that doesn't get you excited, spending eternity in a place where there's no bad officials, there's no bad calls, and you do nothing but win games, then I don't know what will. So heaven is going to be unbelievable, and I'm excited for that. One thing I'll share is, and then I'll open up for questions, and that is, I really like to try to multitask. So if I work out, I'm not a big workout guy, but I do get my cardio in. I'm always trying to listen to a sermon or a different podcast. And one of the pastors I really like, and I know a lot of you probably heard this, but everywhere he goes, he asks two questions. And 1 to 10, how certain are you if you died today, you'd be in heaven? And it's amazing when you ask that question, how many times you hear 5, 6, or 7. If I have one regret in my coaching career, the first how many years, I wish I'd have done a better job of knowing those two questions, because it just opens the door when they say 5, 6, or 7, and you're like, well, why? And it always comes back to work. So I don't go to church enough. I don't pray enough. I don't read my Bible enough. And what's crazy is they can quote John 3:16. They can tell you how to get to heaven, and nothing of it revolves around every week going to church or praying every day. Now, like to be a good basketball player, you got to practice. And obviously, if you want to have a relationship with your wife, you have to spend time with her. If you want to have a relationship with Christ, you got to spend time and grow with him. But it's amazing how many times people are 5, 6, or 7, and then you get done with the conversation. And now John 3:16, for God so loved the world, he gave his for God so loved the world, he gave his one and only begotten son, that whomsoever believe him shall not perish, but have eternal life. So at the end of the day, how do we get to heaven? And if I'd have known that back in the day, I'd have made sure we had a lot more 10s before they left Baylor University. And other than that, I'll open it up to questions, and I'll try my best. They said to talk for about 15 minutes on what I try to do. And to me, I hate clinic talk. Clinic talk is you go to a clinic, they put up a bunch of great drills or plays. You watch a team play and they don't do any of it. You go to a practice, they don't do any of it, but it sounds good in a clinic. So what I try to do is instead of what I should do or could do, this is what I do. And is it great. No, there's always ways to do things better. And I'm always striving to be better tomorrow than I am today. But anyway, that's kind of what I do and where I'm at right now.
As I started off, you talk about that balance that you have when it comes to coaching and being a father, and you really do perfect that, because I'll never forget. I remember my senior year, it was like midnight. It was like 12:30. I'm sleeping in the bed and we just got done playing somebody. You call me out of nowhere and you're like, hey, why didn't you do this on this play? And I was like, coach, it's 12:30. Why are you calling me? Like, let's talk about this in the morning. But the fact that you did that and was able to find that balance after you put your kids to sleep, how long did it take you to find that balance to be able to know, okay, my kids are asleep now I can get back to work?
Well, I think we all try to improve each and every year. Early on in my career, when I wasn't married, I worked 24/7. When I got married, I started to do a better job of balancing things, but really hiring a staff. Many hands make light work, and the better people around you that help make your job easier and also hold you accountable. Hey, coach, you need to go home. Coach, you need to do this. Hey, this is something I'd like. We had one coach that got a promotion, so he got a company car, and he never shared this with anyone. But what he did with his old car, instead of selling it like all of us would do, or give to one of our family, friends, or loved ones, he gave it to a lady, an elderly lady that he drove past every day that would wait for a bus. And he gives her a car, and she's like, you got to come home with me because my family's going to think I stole it or something. He's like, no. I come home. I am giving her this car. This is her time. First car she ever had. She's probably 70 years old or in her 60s. And like that generosity, like, just inspired me to do more. And like when the coaches share what they're doing or how their family's doing or best practices, it makes me sharper. So early on, I wasn't as good as I got, and a lot of that's because of the people I work with. So always surround yourself with, as a staff, when you hire, if you're blessed enough to become a head coach, don't just hire people that are great X and O's or great coaches. Hire great people that make you better, because life is too short to be with people that you don't like or you can't learn from. And we all know you take someone's 5 friends and that's who they normally are like. Well, you want to make sure you're surrounding yourself with people that make you better on and off the court. And I owe our staff a lot of credit for helping me grow during the years too.
Coach, follow-up question. Times evolve, times change, and one of the biggest things in college basketball is the whole NIL. How much harder has that made your job?
Definitely a lot more stressful. And it's not that I don't think players deserve it, just trying to figure out the rules on what you can't do, and then trying to help our players any way possible, because it is a great opportunity for them. So in October, I know the Transformational Committee is putting out new legislation and whatnot, but it is something where players, I know some people don't like it, but if a player can benefit from their name, image, and likeness, and the way it was originally was intended was on the name, image, and likeness, and not just on collectives, but everybody kind of shifted to collectives. So whatever the rules are, that would end a lot of coaches' stress, because we want to make sure we do everything within the rules and then benefit our student athletes as much as possible.
Okay, opening it up to all the coaches. We have one from Troy Pennington. What is God teaching you in this season of life?
He's got me on fire right now with the transformational, with the transfer portal, with our players going pro. We have a lot of new GAs, a lot of new coaches. So each and every year you have a great opportunity. Sometimes back in the day, you might only have 2 or 3 new people. And when you get as many new people part of your team, it's a great ministry opportunity. And again, at the end of the day, with anybody that comes through our program, hopefully they're able to learn and grow in the profession and are able to be successful. But if they don't spiritually grow and they're not in heaven, that's all that matters, because they can be, again, billionaires They can be national champions. None of that's getting them into heaven, and eternity's a lot longer than 5, 10, 15, 20 years that they might coach or play.
Okay. One from Jacob Bibiano. What was the biggest lesson you took from your dad while he coached at Bethel? And how does that coaching life differ from Big 12 basketball?
Well, I think he was able to let us use the facility as as our backyard. I mean, we're up there in the gym all the time. You can't do that at our level, because at our level, our players are in there almost nonstop. And if they're not in there, you might have volleyball or acrobats and tumbling or some other sport in there. So I think at Bethel back in the day, if the basketball team wasn't practicing, I don't even know if they had a women's team, because I never saw them. I just know when I was up there, no one was in there. My dad's team wasn't in there. So it was like our own gym. But I think that part of things is different, obviously, with the Big 12. I tell you what I did learn from my dad that I thought really made an impression on me when I was an assistant coach. And that was, I would always try to get my dad to call recruits, and he would spend more time calling, trying to get past players jobs. And that just really impacted me, how much he cared for the players after they left. And I've tried to do a good job of that. And it's such an honor and blessing and privilege, like when you can help somebody that's been out for 5 or 10 years with the job or with something, and the fact that they would want help or still come to you for advice, that blesses you as a coach, because we coach to help people. And so often we're so consumed with the players we have now, we forget all the past players. And that's probably something else in this season. I'm trying to get better at. When we won the national championship, we had 99 players that had played for us at Baylor, and just trying to make sure I'm there as much as I can to help them and offer any wisdom or support for them.
John Kane. Coaches, if you want to just be able to ask your questions, you can ask your questions and without me having to read every single one. So coaches, John Kane, go ahead. You can ask your question right now.
Yeah, thanks, Coach Drew. I appreciate you. And I'm a Baylor alum. I did my master's work at Baylor back in the 80s. And Baylor has a special place in my heart. But I stopped through there last, a summer or two ago, and I got to talk to JT for a while. And we were talking about culture of joy, and he mentioned your staff, devotions, Bible studies, chapels, and just had a really great conversation with him about that. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you do that with your staff? How do you schedule it? What kind of topics? Who leads? All those kind of good things.
Yeah, that's a great question. What we do is Pastor Brewer's on our staff, and he's a Nations of Coaches former pastor, and he's a character coach now, and he does our coaches Bible study. But if you don't have a Nations of Coaches person, I mean, I would just get a local pastor, associate pastor, and I would just each week set up a time where over lunch, breakfast, 10 o'clock, whatever, you can do something like that. And again, that if you're blessed to be a head of a program, to be able to incorporate that. If you're an assistant and you're able to take people, managers, GAs, coaches that would want a voluntary Bible study. I have a lot of friends that run companies. They'll have a breakfast. They'll provide food once a week, pray for employees, pray with employees, do a Bible study with employees. So, I mean, anyone can do, I mean, you can be, I see one or two of our GAs on, I mean, they could run their own Bible study once a week at their apartment and have people over for pizza and Bible study. And you can always get someone that's willing to do something like that. You guys like that idea? I see them.
Mary Garvin, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, you kind of answered the question right there, but I was going to ask you, being a former head coach myself, how do you balance your ministry and applying discipline to your team? I mean, it's not always cake and ice cream.
Yeah.
Just how do you balance that out?
Well, I think, I mean, in the Bible, it talks about discipline. And I think the best thing we can do as a coaching staff is explain what we want, why we want it, and then hold them accountable to it. And I think when we get in trouble is when our human nature comes in and our emotions come in. But I don't think players want to cause turnovers. I don't think players want to lose games, want to take bad shots. So everybody's gifted. I always say there's a million ways to get to 4. 3 + 1 = 4. 2 + 2 = 4. 4 + 0 = 4. They're all 4. And it's up to God's given each of us different ways and abilities. I'm a positive guy. My dad was a positive coach. And that's not saying that, I mean, trust me, we lose and it's hard sleeping. If you like losing, you're not going to be in this profession long. But at the same time, I think how you hold people accountable and what you hold them accountable to, and if they know why you're holding them accountable for it, I think that's one thing for younger coaches, GAs on this call. Back in the day, Coach Knight or Coach Katie or whoever used to say John wouldn't do this and people would do it. Now what you have to do is you have to explain why to do it. I mean, Nolan Richardson might have been able to say press for 40 minutes. Now you got to tell people why we're going to press for 40 minutes, So, and once they understand the why, then, and that goes to personal relationships too. I mean, one thing that we do is learn this from the Spurs. Popovich always has great meals and his players are always invited. But like over meals, lunches, breakfast, you get a chance to have relationships with guys. If they know, we all know in coaching, nobody cares what you know until they know how much you care. And if people know you care for them, know what you want, why you want it, and then you're doing your job, then I think they're all for you holding them accountable because they want to be great.
Okay, one follow-up. With that, Coach, have you ever apologized to your team for getting on them?
All the time. So, and what I mean by that is if I said something and in film I was wrong, I apologize. If I say something and they correct me right there, because hey, we all sin, we all make mistakes. I mean, so I usually say, I got 5 push-ups, 10 push-ups. Now, when I was younger, I might have done 15 or 20. All right, I'm down to 5 or 10 now.
TJ Nagy.
Yeah. My question is how do you not allow the ups and downs of a normal basketball season affect like how you interact with your family at home, coming home from a loss or
Yeah. Well, we all are human. And I just know the longer you're in coaching, the better you are at it, hopefully. And I know the first couple of years I'd come home and I wasn't a great husband and bless my wife and a lot of apologies. But I mean, when you lose, you are down. I mean, it's not like you walk around and you're not down. I just think being aware of it and trying to be better at it. Again, if you take a step back, and what I mean to step back, after I watch the game, after I break it down, and normally I do that now, like on the road, I do it on the plane. And once I get done broken down, usually I feel a lot better because I feel like I know why we lost, what we have to get better at, or what I need to get better at. Because I always start with after a loss, first thing is what could I do better? Hopefully each player, what could they do better individually? And then what can we do better as a team? So again, when you get out of that part of it and you know what, then you're on to, okay, how can we get better for the future? But I mean, we're all human. I mean, we win, we come home. I'm sure we're a lot more enjoyable than when we lose. At the same point, I've tried to get better at that. And it's not fair to our kids if we lose and we take it out on them or take it out on our wife. I mean, that doesn't say a lot about us. So again, when I do, as quick as I can apologize and hopefully get right mentally, I try to do that. And the longer you're in anything, normally the better you get at it.
Caitlin Benedict has a question.
Hey, Coach. My question for you is just in this profession, and especially as you've moved up in levels and now as a head coach, what do you do to prioritize your self-care so your well doesn't run dry? Because the people that we serve are constantly drawing from us.
Man, that's a great question. You can only give what you have. And an extra cup of coffee a day does help. But I can tell you, I have to make sure. People always like to brag about not getting sleep. I got to get sleep first and foremost, because if I'm getting 6 hours during season, I'm not the same as if I'm getting 8 or 9, especially. And you say 9, yeah, nights before games. If you can get 9 hours, I know I'm a lot better coach than if I get 6 hours. Early on, I'd stay up to watch one more film, one more thing, and that just affected me. The other thing is I got to eat right, because if I don't eat right, I get grumpy. So and then you gotta work out. And at the end of the day, it might be 20 minutes, but if you take care of yourself, you're eating, you're sleeping, and then you're working out, that gets you something in the tank spiritually. For me, obviously, that's where my strength comes. So prayer, listening to sermons, podcasts. I love Christian music. That's basically all I listen to. So, but you're right. You have to, who motivates the motivator? And that's why you got to be around a good staff, because they motivate you. But if you're not taking care of yourself, if you haven't eaten, you haven't slept, you haven't worked out, that's going to affect your performance. And spiritually, I got to be fed just as much as anything else. So that all goes into me being right, so that the players can be right.
Jason Besta. Sorry if I butchered that. I apologize.
You're good. You're good, Coach.
You know, Jason's a Baylor guy, so I mean.
Coach, what does a culture of joy look like after a loss?
Yeah. Normally, I learned this from my dad. After a loss, don't say much. And why I say that is, until you look at the film, you really aren't always certain what went on, and you don't want to say things that you regret. And so normally we're going to say the Lord's Prayer, and I keep it short, and we've been blessed. We haven't lost a lot. So normally I start with, I got to do a better job. You guys watch the film, watch what you can do better, and we'll figure this out as a team. Lord's Prayer, and then we'll see you tomorrow. So normally we keep it pretty short. Speaking of culture of joy, this is a generation that learns visually. And what we try to do is, like when we have joy interviews where you have a player that would say, I want to thank Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. And then I want to thank my teammates, Cannon, Connor, Ryan. They had my back tonight, or they were unbelievable defensively, or whatever. And then we like our players to hear those, because as you listen or see one of your teammates bragging about you, it's easier for you to get an interview and do the exact same thing. And we try to always show those kind of things.
Eric Tita.
Oh, okay, Coach. I wanted to know, how do you motivate your players, your team, to continue training after each season? And I wanted to know if they are actually students, if your athletes are still students or graduates.
Mm-hmm. So our student, they do go to class, and it's grad school or undergrad. And normally we try to recruit boring players. And what I mean by that is people that are going to be in the gym a lot because they love it. Like, you have to kick them out of the gym, and they are fighting to get in the gym to get themselves better. And then we want guys that are going to class and hopefully spending the rest of the time resting, playing video games, doing things where they can recover, rather than guys that are going out all the time. And in college, we know there's a lot of distractions, a lot of opportunities to enjoy a social life. But if you're enjoying the social life, that means you're not practicing, you're not doing your academics, and you're probably getting fatigued, which will affect your playing. So really, when you evaluate players and say one player is a little more talented, but this player fits your culture, like they're an unbelievable worker, teammate. We've gone with this one because over the time, they end up a better player than this one.
Luke Stevens.
Hey, Coach. Just wanted to say appreciate you for taking the time to do this. I'm getting ready to play my last season at Indiana Wesleyan University this year. And I was just curious if you had any advice for guys looking to pursue a graduate assistant position, and what traits coaches look for the most when hiring young coaches.
Great question. So first and foremost, big reason for our success, we've had unbelievable GAs, and most of them have gone on and gotten great college jobs, NBA jobs, been successful if they wanted to go high school route or whatever. So the first thing is, a lot of people wait and do things late. You want to do them early, like your junior year in college, sophomore, like start reaching out to coaches and programs and putting it on their radar and building a relationship. Kind of like you're not going to marry a girl after one date. Well, you're not going to hire a GA after one date. And normally the ones that you end up going with, you have, there's a book called The Power Who by Bob Bodine. It's a great book. You have to know, they have to be your who, like your friends. Like if King called and says, I got a guy, I'm going to listen to him. If someone sends me an email and I have no idea who they are, it's going to be really hard that person has a chance. So the first thing is find somebody that knows somebody. So like if you wanted to go to Purdue, you got to find someone that knows a coach or knows Matt Painter, and then get to them so they can put in a good word for you. And the sooner you do that, the better. But that's the power who, and starting earlier is the advice I'd give you.
Eric.
Sure.
Coach, me again. I wanted to also ask if you also have like a team Bible study.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we
you spoke of the staff Bible studies, and
yeah.
also
We actually have a players Bible study as well. So what we do with our players is it's the same person does ours, does theirs, and it'll be 15 minutes before practice or after practice with just him and the players. And then when we play home games, we do what the NBA kind of does. And that is we'll go through our shoot around, and then we'll go through our scouting report, and then we'll have our game day chapel services. And there'll be a 15 or 20 minutes. And our home game are done by Pastor Weibel, a pastor in town. And our away game chapel services are done by our assistant coaches. So we do game day chapels and we do Bible studies with the team.
Coach Drew, we have one from Dennis McFadden, who is having phone trouble because he cannot get his phone off of mute. But he wanted to know, have you read any books lately that have impacted you enough to share with your team?
The Road to Joy. So we did write a book about just what God's done with our program, and that's a great book. I think if you're looking for just how God's impacted our program. As far as books go, I don't read a lot during season because I'm a slow reader. Normally when I start a book, I get consumed with it and I got to finish it. I'm one of those guys, I hate starting something and not finishing. So I don't read a lot during the season, but if there's a good Christian book, a good Christian leadership book, those are the books I normally read.
Alex Mirabal. Alex.
Hey, yes, I'm here. Hey, Coach, how do you replace a great assistant coach like Jerome Tang?
Great question. So just like replacing great players, it's hard to do. And normally this is something for head coaches out there. Normally you hire an assistant coach. That first year they really learn. And then the second year they start to give back. And then that third year they're really good. It's kind of like most players that come in. And when I say most, there's always exceptions, but most players aren't one and done. They're good their first year, better their second year, really good their junior and senior year. So with us, we've been blessed to have so many people that have been a part of our program before, and either they come back or they move up. So like we moved Jared Nunes up, and Jared's been in our program for a long time. So the transition is a lot quicker because he already knows what we do, how we do it, the players that we have. We hired Tweety Carter, who used to play for us, was our first McDonald's All-American, played overseas, just retired, and he took the place of Jared Nunes. So he's around all in the summer times in Waco. So the transition has been a lot easier. We did just have an ops person take a job with the Phoenix Suns, and we did bring in someone that hadn't been a part of Baylor basketball, but he was an Athletes in Action guy, Luke Simons. He was on tours, was in AIA in China for 3 years, and then worked for my brother at Valpo University and Vanderbilt. So he was real familiar with our family and how we do things. So again, having people you can trust, having people that know you and how you want things done, it just makes things a lot quicker and smoother. When I hired Coach Tang, normally in this profession, you don't hire a lot of people you don't know. And we're just kindred spirits, and all was Christ-centered based. Just loved his heart for God and just what he was able to do at Heritage Christian High School. And he did a great job for us and do a great job for K-State.
Cam.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned a little bit about who like leads your team's Bible studies and stuff, but does a local church play a role with your team at all? Or do you guys all go to church together, or the guys go together? What's that kind of dynamic look like?
Well, at Baylor, we have 23 or 24 different campus ministries. So there's a lot of opportunity there. We have a lot of great churches. At one point, I think Waco was one of the most churches per capita in the U.S. So a lot of the players, GAs, might go to one of the 3 or 4 bigger churches. But a lot of college students don't go to church, and we don't have a set time like where we all go, because that's one thing that all our coaching staffs, I think it's important we go to church, and we all go to different churches because we're blessed to have so many good options and opportunities here. And that's a big reason why we do Bible study during the week for those that don't go to church. Obviously, there's some that do. Jared Butler was teaching second or third grade Sunday school at one of the churches. And he's an unbelievable example. Someone also that came to Baylor with a heart condition, and through King and seeing what King was able to do and achieve at Baylor, came to Baylor in 3 years. He graduated from our business school, was Big 12 Scholar Athlete of the Year, Big 12 Co-Player of the Year with a guy you might have heard of, Cade Cunningham, and had a great career, but spiritually really grew. And like I said, was in a church teaching, helping out with second and third grade kids for part of his time here.
Colton Ritzema.
Hi, Coach. So even though I know you guys have a big emphasis on Christianity and being a Christian program, I'm sure there are guys that are on your team that are maybe a little leery or wary of being a Christian or embracing that. So how do you interact with those guys without forcing it on them, but also still loving them?
Well, I think, teacher, what's the greatest commandment of the law? Love your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. So, I mean, we're all sinners. Jesus came for the sick. Jesus loved the sick. I mean, at the end of the day, we try to make sure each person that comes into our program knows what we do and how we do it, just so that they don't feel uncomfortable, because we're not going to change what we do. If they don't want to be a part of it, that's great. There's a lot of other great programs that are better for them. But for those that come, are all of them devout? No, just like I wasn't in college. I mean, at the end of the day, hopefully we're pouring into our guys, and spiritually they're a lot better off than I was. And that goes for our team chaplain, he has an unbelievable testimony. So I think we don't want to ever put people in positions they would feel where religion was pushed down their throat or made them feel uncomfortable. At the same time, if you're loving people and you're treating people right, they want to know why and what you do and how you do it. Because if you admire somebody, you're going to want to be like them, you know?
One from Jacob Lindsay.
Hey, Coach. I'm not sure if I missed it. We were talking about it earlier, but I was wondering if you had any recommendations of people or like biblical podcasts that you listen to. And also, like, second question, what was your like go-to place to run on Butler's campus if you did when you're at Butler? I know you talked about running and listening to podcasts and stuff like that at the same time.
Well, when I was in college, they didn't have podcasts. I'll give you an Idea. It wasn't until our, like in 1996 that we finally got a cell phone, because back in the day, people didn't have cell phones. They were too expensive to have. So we had telephone booths. Mike, Siegfried, you can tell them about a telephone booth. But as far as podcasts, I love Andy Stanley. I really enjoy listening to him out of Atlanta. I really enjoy JP out of Harris Creek. I think it's McGregor or Woodway, Texas, but it's right outside of Waco. And then Pastor Tony Evans, Oak Cliff, he's tremendous. And then people send different podcasts. Jimmy Dykes is doing one, and he just had David Pollock on, just had Patrick Young on. Both of them were tremendous. So just anything that our assistant coaches run across, there's always some random ones. But those are the sermon ones I listen to. That, and then some of them have leadership podcasts, like Andy Stanley has a leadership podcast with that. When King's podcasts are going, I listen to King's.
Yes, appreciate the support, Coach. Any more questions? Anybody have any more questions? If not, we can pass it over to Jason. Is Jason still on the call?
All right, I'm here. I was thinking of maybe a last question to throw at Coach here, but Coach, I will throw, you traveled, I believe it was to Macedonia here with Mike Siegfried. I know it's been a few years ago, but what's just something you recall from just the experience of going overseas, seeing the game internationally? And then I have one other follow-up question after that.
Well, if you're ever in position to be able to go on an Athletes in Action tour, I mean, it's life-changing. I think most of our players, and King can attest to this, but most of our players before COVID, virtually half our team, by the time, if they stayed 3 or 4 years, would have gone on an Athletes in Action tour. But they get outside of the US, they learn from other cultures, they get a chance to appreciate things that we have here, and at the same thing, appreciate things that other parts of the world have. Spiritually, most of our players come back, as did I, and you're on a spiritual high. You're just on fire for God, and it's God in basketball, and it doesn't get any better than that. And really, all the distractions of the world are taken away, and you're just able to spiritually really grow, and you're able to do what you love to do, play basketball games. So you're doing both of those in a foreign country. And King, you might be able to describe it better than me. But again, my faith walk, you would leave and you'd feel so close, and with all the players on the team, you feel like they were your brothers, that you'd been with them for 5 years. I mean, you know everything about them, you love them, and then you stay in touch with them for the short term. Some you stay in touch with for the long term. So it's just a great experience. It matures you a lot. King, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I'd agree 110%. I think the biggest thing with the tour is, like you said, I still stay in contact with there's 10 guys on the team. I still stay in contact with about 7 or 8 of them because that was my first experience ever really going overseas. And just the whole thing with Mike, like me and Mike Siegfrieds, we're super tight just because of the lack. I didn't have any clothes. So me and him had to build a relationship. We had to get super close that way, to the point to where anything that Athletes in Action does, I will be 110% support of. So, I mean, it really wasn't about basketball. The basketball was great. I mean, Coach Jacobs was my coach over there who was at Gonzaga at the time and then ended up coming to Baylor about 2 years later, being one of the assistant coaches. The basketball was cool and all, but it really was bigger than just that. It was more sort of life lessons after dinner or the talks we would have just in the hotel rooms, getting closer to God, getting close to each other. I'm just hearing other people's stories. I mean, when you're in a foreign country and you're with a group of 9 guys and it's just you and the 9 guys, you have no choice but to get close because you really feel like they're the only people that can relate to you. So I think that right there was the biggest thing, building those relationships and really just stepping out on a limb and getting out your comfort zone.
It's always a fun little nuggets to hear, and just how that's been an almost universal experience of guys that travel, go internationally. But Coach Drew, a final question here for the night is, we got a lot of young coaches that are on this call or that are going to listen to it. But what's one of a phrase we use is just for the good of the game. What's something that you would encourage young coaches? How can they really bless the game? What can they bring to the game to just make it better for all?
Well, I can tell you, the longer you coach, the more you realize that the real blessing to coaching is the relationships, and to spend more time with that and less time with just the X's, O's and film watching. And what I mean by that is the teams that love one another the most, they're going to sacrifice for each other the most. They're going to play the hardest. They're going to compete the hardest. It's just like you, the people that you're closest to in your life, you'll do more for than people you aren't as close to. So just investing in time in each individual, and not just making it transactional, but making it relational. I mean, the team bonding, the one-on-one time, that stuff does really matter. And so often we think it's just the practice time and the extra reps, the extra shots. But it is a team game. And as long as it's a team game, one of the biggest things for successful teams is getting them to sacrifice and love one another. And if you can have a team that sacrifices and loves one another, you got a really good team.
Next, Coach. I'll let King, I'll let you give, I'll make one quick final announcement, and King, you can close us out. But just in general for Athletes in Action, we hope really our next big in-person event, just at the Final Four, we do ministry events for coaches. We'll be presenting the John Wooden Keys to Life Award. Just AIA also does do international trips, help send coaches internationally on doing coaching clinics. We're actually hosting a whole bunch of international coaches in a couple weeks. Up to 30 coaches will be at our headquarters for 2 weeks, just trying to help develop coaches. We do team building. Anyway, we got our hand in a mix of things, just trying to help bless the game, make it better, and help grow the people to the glory of God. So even you guys will get some emails with some more information about how AIA might be able to just assist you in that. King?
Yeah, I just want to say a big thank you to Coach Drew. And your words of wisdom tonight. Thank you for that, Coach. Thank you for taking the time. And to every single coach on this call, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to help grow the game and for the good of the game, as athletes, as AIA likes to say. So with that being said, everybody have a blessed night.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, King.